Welcome to the debate. So, I want you to imagine this. You are sitting on your couch, your phone buzzes.
The universal signal for modern anxiety, right?
Exactly, right? But you look down, and it is this beautifully written, deeply vulnerable text message from the person you've been seeing.
Okay.
It's an apology for, a misunderstanding you had on your last date.
hmm
And the tone is it's perfect. It's emotionally intelligent. It fully acknowledges your feelings, and it really makes you feel completely seen.
Which is incredibly rare.
Right. So in that moment, you feel this genuine spark of connection. But now, I want you to imagine finding out that this beautiful text was generated by a large language model in about 3 seconds.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Did that connection just vanish? Like, was it even real to begin with?
I mean, it really is the defining question of modern romance, isn't it? Because that scenario you just described, it's not science fiction anymore. It is happening thousands of times a day.
Yes, and it perfectly encapsulates this strange, almost paradoxical landscape of dating in 2026. We are looking at a culture defined by a massive crisis. I was looking at the latest data, and one number just completely stopped me in my tracks.
Let me guess, the commitment stats?
Yes, 46% of singles say they are ready for a long-term commitment right now, like today. But at the exact same time, only about 1 in 3 young adults are actively dating.
Right. Sociologists are calling it the dating recession.
The dating recession. And it is being fueled by an unprecedented, paralyzing level of dating app burnout. People want love, but the friction of getting there has just become, frankly, too much.
It's a complete gridlock of human intimacy. People know exactly where they want to go. They want that deep connection, but they are entirely refusing to actually get in the car and drive there.
Exactly. And that brings us to our central disagreement for today's discussion. We are looking at the new tools and, tricks of modern dating culture that have emerged to deal with all this burnout. Specifically, we're talking about AI-mediated communication, this practice called clear coding, and the behavioral trend of soft dating.
Right.
So the question we are debating is this: are these new tools healthy, necessary adaptations that actually help singles navigate a broken system and find genuine connection? Or do they fundamentally enable commitment phobia, dilute authenticity, and exacerbate this dating recession by stripping away essential human vulnerability?
A huge question.
It is. So, for my part, I will be arguing that these new strategies and technologies provide essential scaffolding that empowers daters to overcome burnout and articulate their true intentions.
And I will be arguing that these exact strategies create a sterilized, low-risk environment that shields daters from vulnerability, ultimately deepening the crisis of intimacy.
Let's lay out the groundwork for our positions here. Because from my perspective, we have to start by acknowledging just how painful the current dating culture really is. Friction is everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
We aren't just talking about mild annoyance here. 47% of adults now find online dating more frustrating than enjoyable. And a staggering 90% report that ambiguous, undefined situationships are their normal experience. People are entirely drained by the guesswork.
It's exhausting for them.
It is. So when we look at the new tricks to succeed in dating today, I don't see them as avoidance at all. I see them as healthy correctives.
Healthy correctives? Okay.
Yeah. Take clear coding. This is where daters explicitly state their intentions upfront, almost like a contract, to just avoid that situationship trap entirely. Or soft dating, where the goal isn't to evaluate someone for marriage by date 2, but simply to prioritize being present and keeping the stakes incredibly low. These are vital adaptations to protect singles from severe emotional drain.
Well,
And just quickly on the AI front, we are seeing users delegate what sociologists call articulation labor to AI. They have the LLM draft the difficult text, but the user retains the actual feeling labor. This bridges a crippling communication gap. When you consider that 48% of Gen Z men report holding back simply out of fear of coming on too strong, these tools cure burnout by making dating manageable again.
look, I understand the appeal of that narrative. It's comforting to think that technology and some new therapeutic vocabulary can save us from the pain of dating.
Right.
but the data paints a much darker picture of what is actually happening beneath the surface here. We are looking at a generation that is profoundly lacking in dating resilience. The Institute for Family Studies recently found that 55% of young adults are reluctant to even attempt dating after a breakup.
Wow, 55.
55%. Let that sink in. More than half are just opting out because they can't handle the emotional turbulence. So when you introduce AI as a conversational intermediary to, solve this anxiety, you aren't fixing the problem. You are creating a deceptive, covert triad.
A covert triad.
Exactly. A relationship that feels dyadic, just between two people, to the receiver, but is secretly being stage managed by a machine. Furthermore, regarding trends like slow dating, my view is that these terms are frequently weaponized by avoidant personalities as a polite excuse to never actually commit. By replacing raw, unpolished human interaction with rehearsed AI scripts and endlessly low-stakes pacing, we are robbing singles of the very emotional risk required to build true romantic resilience.
Well, let's start right there, with the AI mediation, because I think this is where the technological shift is the most jarring for people to accept.
It is very jarring.
I want to unpack this idea of authenticity. I was reading some recent work that builds on the sociologist Arlie Hochschild's classic theory of emotional labor, and I came across this concept of articulation labor.
Right, separating the feeling from the speaking.
Exactly. Historically, we've always assumed that feeling an emotion and finding the words to express it are the exact same continuous act. If you love someone, you'll know how to say it. But what if they aren't the same? A user might feel deep remorse or deep affection. That is the feeling labor, and it authentically belongs to them.
Sure, they feel it.
They are sitting on their couch genuinely feeling that apology, but they might lack the vocabulary or just the confidence to express it. The AI simply provides the linguistic form. It acts as a translator. I see why you think that is deceptive, but let me give you a different perspective.
Okay, go ahead.
Think of AI assistants as a prosthetic tool for communication. Or even think of it like a really good Hallmark card. We don't accuse someone of being deceptive when they buy a greeting card that perfectly captures their feelings, right? The AI doesn't replace the heart. It simply helps the message reach the other person without the static of anxiety. When 93% of daters find the modern process difficult, having a wingman that helps you say what you mean is just empowering.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. You cannot neatly, surgically separate the feeling from the form when it comes to human intimacy. The medium is part of the message.
Is it though?
Yes. Let me break down this covert triad concept, because it sounds like academic jargon, but it's actually incredibly simple. A triad means there are three entities in the relationship: you, me, and the algorithm acting as our Cyrano de Bergerac.
Right.
Now, a dyad, a traditional two-person relationship, is sacred specifically because it admits no audience and relies entirely on the two people involved to keep it alive. When you bring an LLM into that space secretly, it is structurally asymmetric and inherently deceptive, because the receiving partner believes they are experiencing your linguistic authorship.
But they are experiencing your intent.
But not your authorship. When I read that apology text, I think I am seeing your struggle to find the words. I'm projecting your idiosyncratic pauses, your specific, messy way of saying sorry. But operationally, a third party is mediating. When millions of apologies and deep conversations are routed through ChatGPT, intimate language becomes completely standardized into these perfect, therapeutic I statements.
But it's effective.
You strip away the idiosyncratic human struggle that makes intimacy real. If I am receiving a heartfelt text, I have the right to know if I'm building an emotional bond with you or with your prompt engineering.
But let me ask you this. Is the struggle really the point, or is the connection the point? I can hear our listeners shouting at their dashboards right now, saying, wait, if I have intense social anxiety and an AI helps me structure a text that saves my relationship from a catastrophic misunderstanding, isn't that a net positive?
But at what cost to authenticity?
I would argue the authenticity lies in the ownership of the intent. The user doesn't just hit send blindly. They have to read the AI's draft, evaluate it against their own internal state, and say, yes, this accurately represents my heart. That active endorsement is a form of authenticity. If the goal is to understand each other, why demonize a tool that facilitates better understanding?
Because it's an editorial authenticity. Sure, you are acting as the editor-in-chief of your own emotions, but romance isn't a press release. The vulnerability of stumbling over your words is vital data to your partner.
Vital data.
Yes. It tells them how much you care, how nervous you are, how willing you are to look foolish for them. When people use AI as a rehearsal space to pre-test how a sentence will be received, they are extending the highly curated self-presentation of a dating app profile into the actual relationship itself. It is anticipatory anxiety masquerading as emotional intelligence.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. I don't think it's anticipatory anxiety masquerading as emotional intelligence. I think it's people recognizing that the stakes of being misunderstood today are incredibly high, and they are using tools to protect themselves.
Protect themselves from what? A slightly awkward conversation?
From total burnout. And this actually leads perfectly into how daters are protecting themselves, not just digitally, but behaviorally. If AI is the digital shield, then the new culture of soft dating is the behavioral shield against emotional and financial burnout.
Ah, the soft dating trend.
Right. Let's talk about what happens when these people actually meet in person. The logistics of traditional dating today are exhausting. Did you know the average date in a major city now costs around $189?
It is astronomically expensive, yes.
It is no wonder that 52% of singles cite money as a major barrier to dating. You have the performative anxiety of a fancy dinner, the splitting of the bill, the intense pressure to decide if this person sitting across from you is your future spouse by the time dessert arrives.
Right. It feels like an interview.
Exactly. So we are seeing a massive shift toward low-pressure, high-presence dates. A $5 coffee walk, a stroll through a farmer's market. You combine this with the philosophy of soft dating, which means dating without the pressure of a specific escalated outcome. You prioritize curiosity over evaluation. It removes the intense performative anxiety and gives daters a safe environment to just be human.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered how easily that exact framework is co-opted?
Co-opted how?
Well, I want to be fair here. I acknowledge that for someone recovering from severe dating app fatigue or coming out of a toxic relationship, a low-stakes coffee walk is a wonderful, healthy on-ramp.
Absolutely.
But as a societal norm, slow dating and soft dating are being heavily weaponized by avoidant personalities. We need to apply some strict definitional precision here. Healthy slow dating means you are taking time to build emotional depth. It's a deliberate pacing. But if the pace never accelerates and the emotional depth doesn't actually increase, that isn't slow dating. That's being stuck.
Okay. But how do you...
And what we are seeing in 2026 is that these trendy, therapeutic-sounding terms often just provide a beautiful, culturally bulletproof costume for commitment phobia.
I can hear listeners wondering about the difference, though. Is it taking things at a comfortable pace, just setting healthy boundaries? How do you distinguish between someone practicing self-care and someone wearing a costume, as you put it?
You look at the asymmetry. Imagine someone who simply doesn't want to commit, doesn't want to integrate their partner into their life. 10 years ago, society just called that person a flake. Their partner would realize they were a flake and leave.
Right. The classic fade out.
Exactly. But today, that same person says, I'm practicing intentional soft dating. Let's not put artificial pressure on this connection. Do you see the difference? It allows one partner to dictate an asymmetric, unilateral pace. The philosophy becomes a shield against every legitimate question that requires real intention. It traps the other person in perpetual limbo disguised as mindfulness.
I see the risk of it being weaponized, certainly. But I think you are looking at the pathology of a minority and applying it to the vast majority of daters. For the average single person today, soft dating is an excuse to avoid commitment. It is a direct rebellion against the hyper-efficiency of algorithmic matchmaking.
Hyper-efficiency?
Yes, dating apps imported this horrible grammar of efficiency into romance. We started treating human beings like products on Amazon to be filtered by height and income. Soft dating is a deliberate act of deceleration. It is a dater saying, I am not going to treat you like a resume to be scanned.
But they are treating profiles like resumes to be optimized.
Well, and this relates directly to how people are controlling the pace from the very first interaction. Profile optimization has become a vital trick to succeed, and for very good reason, because users only have about half a second to make a first impression before someone swipes.
Half a second? That's bleak.
It is bleak. Because of that brutal efficiency, daters are using what experts call dating profile hooks. Instead of a generic bio, they use specific micro-challenges or open loops to start a conversation, like, convince me your city has better coffee than mine.
Right.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning you used earlier that this curation is bad, because demanding raw, uncurated vulnerability up front is reckless in an environment where 93% of people already find dating painfully difficult. Using safe specificity curates better matches and prevents oversharing. It cuts through the app fatigue.
I come at it from a different way. I don't disagree that a clever micro-challenge increases your conversion rate. But think about the vocabulary we are using right now. Optimization, conversion rate, cognitive load, safe specificity. We are literally treating human courtship like a B2B sales funnel.
If it works, it works.
But we are trying to optimize our lead generation for romance. And it misses the root cause of the dating recession. The real issue isn't profile structure. It is a fundamental lack of dating resilience.
But if optimizing the profile gets them off the couch and actually onto the date, doesn't it solve the problem of inactivity?
No, because it creates a completely false premise for the relationship. Think back to the data. Only 28% of young adults can stay positive after a single bad day. They have zero tolerance for friction. By desperately trying to engineer flawless, rejection-proof interaction, from the first swipe to the AI-drafted text to the low-pressure coffee walk, daters never built a grit required to handle inevitable relationship turbulence. Relationships are friction. They require the ability to absorb a misunderstanding, handle the sting of rejection, sit in awkward silence. If you engineer all of that away, you are completely unequipped to sustain a real connection.
That implies the friction of a badly designed dating app is the exact same as the friction of a healthy relationship. I would argue they are entirely different ecosystems.
They are connected, though.
Are they? The friction of the modern dating market is entirely artificial. It's algorithmic burying, it's endless gamified swiping without ever meeting, it is burnout by design. Let me use an analogy here. Think of the modern dating market as a torrential rainstorm.
Okay.
You don't walk into a storm without a raincoat just to prove you have grit. You wear the raincoat to protect your energy so that when you finally get to your destination, you aren't freezing and exhausted. These daters are protecting their emotional energy from the artificial friction of the apps, so they actually have reserves left for the real relationship.
It is a beautiful defense, and I love the raincoat analogy. But I look at the outcome. If the tools were truly working the way you describe, the dating recession would be ending. We would see that 46% pairing up. Instead, the recession is deepening. To use your analogy, the raincoat has become so comfortable that it is keeping them isolated indoors. They never actually step out into the rain. When we rely on covert AI triads to speak for us, we outsource our authentic voice. By relying on these protective shields, singles are dodging the authentic, unpolished vulnerability that is fundamentally required to build lasting romantic bonds.
It is a fascinating tension. And if we take a step back and look at everything we've covered today, I think we've actually arrived at a very powerful point of convergence here. Because despite our disagreement on the tools, we both completely agree on the underlying symptoms.
Oh, absolutely. The modern dating system in 2026 is deeply structurally flawed, and dating resilience is at a dangerously low point.
Yes. And yet, beneath all the AI texts and the B2B optimization strategies, singles are genuinely yearning for deep, serious connections. The human desire for love hasn't changed one bit, but the infrastructure around it is crumbling.
We agree in the diagnosis. People desperately want to connect. They're just paralyzed by the current mechanics of doing so, and they are terrified of getting hurt.
Exactly. And it highlights the immense value of looking at intimacy through multiple lenses. We have to view it through a socio-technical lens, understanding how algorithms and AI shape the very words we speak. but we also have to view it through a purely human lens.
Understanding our core psychological need for risk and for messiness.
Right. The evolving sociology of romance clearly holds much more to explore in our source material. So the question we leave you with is whether the future of love requires us to engineer better protective tools to survive the storm, or if it requires the courage to strip those raincoats away entirely and feel the unpolished reality of connecting with another human being.
A lot to think about.
Truly. We will leave it to you, the listener, to decide for yourself. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.